Ray. What do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
All right, yo, let's get into it.
Try to take over the world.
Preaching freedom.
Try to take over the world.
And greatest chaplain in the world, Mr.
Try
Lance
to
O'Neill.
take over the world.
What's up, world? It is Sunday at 8:30. Do you know where your POGs are? Of course you do. We are here live and in full effect on Sunday, 8:30. Big shout out to our new home planet, if you will. We are live and in full effect to I want to give a big shout out to our new home station, the CTR Media Network. We will be laying our proverbial hats down for the foreseeable future. So I want to give a shout out to Dr. Tina Ramsey and those guys for welcoming us with open arms. This is our first debut episode on the network. So thank you guys very much for that opportunity. And while we're in a celebrating mood, we also want to celebrate our very own Chaplain Lance O'Neill. It is his birthday today, number unknown. So I want to give a big shout out to my partner in crime. Happy birthday. How are you, sir?
Good. My phone stole my headphones there for a second. So awesome intro, whatever it was. Good job. Hey, CTR Network. Yay.
All the bad things I said about him, you guys don't come back and tell them about it. Yo, we got a busy 90 minutes, man. So we got to jump right into it. Let's go ahead and get into it. Hey, listen, California is on fire. Literally, I don't know what happened out there, but those boys are in trouble, man. The Pacific Palisades are burning insanely. I think San Francisco had an earthquake. Man, those boys are going through it. Chappie, what are your thoughts, man? Talk to me.
I feel really bad for what's going on up there. It's kind of heartbreaking with just everything. And it's also, at the same time, it's pretty disappointing to see how some people are reacting on both sides, right? So on one side, you have James Woods, who's a very conservative actor. And on the other side, you have Mark Hamill of Star Wars fame, Luke, and a very liberal, very left-leaning. And I've seen tweets on both sides basically happy that the other person's house burnt down. James Woods' house, thankfully, did not burn down. He thought it had. And so you see these people who are taking the politics in a way and going, oh, boy, I don't like that person's politics. I'm glad their house burnt down. You know what, dude? You're an a-hole. If that's your response to the fires. Now, if you want to get into the politics of the fires and why it happened and some of the, shall we say, mismanagement, that's fair game. But when you start talking about, I don't like that actor and his politics, so I'm happy his house burnt down, you, sir, you're a jerk. Whoever
that's a little bit rough, man. So let's dive into it a little bit. So I have some thoughts, and I'm gonna try to remain as unbiased as possible, right? So I have some thoughts, right? So you have instances of people hiring private firefighters
Fire
to
crews,
protect their assets, which is all well and good. If you can afford it, why not, right? Some people hire private security, private pilots, or whatever, cool. But where I have an issue is, why are you using public water for private assets? That's kind of where I draw the line. I'm like, all right, cool. If you're a private entity, right? Like you should have your own water, right? And then, a couple of other things kind of rub me the wrong way. And I get the whole fire chief trying to do the whole CYA or whatever, trying to talk about, oh, well, we didn't have the resources and, we weren't prepared.
Oh, blame game.
Yeah. And I get it. You have to do what you got to do to save your job. This was a there's no other way to put it. It was a shit show of tremendous proportions, right? It was, years of mismanagement that just, caught up to him,
Maui 2.0.
Yeah, decades of deforestation and mismanagement, not managing the reservoirs. It just kind of all hit them at the perfect time, and it just caught them flat-footed, unfortunately. And my prayers go out to all of those guys, man. I feel so bad for them because you got the insurance companies who just for years have just been pulling out on these guys, and they have no way of recovering any of that stuff. And it's
yeah, the insurance thing is kind of tough though, because insurance, there's state regulators that decide certain things when it comes to insurance. They have limits about what you can charge and rates like that. So a few years ago, the insurance companies came out and said, look, we're losing our shirts on these natural disasters, these fires. And so, California, we know what a threat it is for these. So we need to increase the rates. And the state basically came out and said, nope, we're not going to allow you to. So the insurance industry said, well, you know what? We can't cover that. And if we can't, because remember, every business out there is there to make money. I remember just a couple of weeks ago, I looked up the industries. Insurance is #1 industry in the world as far as the amount of money that is turned over in insurance. So, if you're an insurance company and you're going, hey, look, we need to be able to not only cover the people that want to have policies, but we also have to make a little bit of money. We got to have some money.
Oh, I'm sure they're making a lot. Yeah, they're making a lot more than a little bit, but yeah.
Sure. Well, it depends. So, right. So we've all seen those Facebook or X that it says, what's a scam that you know it's a scam, but you still participate in, something like that. And I think insurance almost always comes up, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So insurance is a scam. Well, yeah, insurance is a scam until you need it. And so I look at it and I've said, well, I've put I'm 52 years old. I started driving when I was 16. So my dad's been paying insurance on me, or once I, got over about 19, I started paying my own. So 30 odd years of insurance at hundreds and hundreds of dollars every single month. Without really, I've had a claim here or there. I know the insurance company has made money off of me. I'm a absolute net black for them. I'm not a deficient. I'm not in the red. But if my house burns down, they better cover it. And this is where the problem is going to be in California is for the people. One of the questions I had was, how many of the people that were rich were able to pay that higher premium or get insurance and keep insurance? Because if you have let's say you're Mel Gibson and you have a $14 million house and you're going, hey, I really need insurance on my house. I'm willing to pay more because I have the ability to do that, versus that building that's down the street that has just a normal, and nowadays it's a overly, priced building.
Yeah.
It's, 2,000 square feet that's worth $1.5 million, but there's 6 TikTok artists working in there and they're all scraping by to put the money. They probably don't have the insurance. So it's tough because I look at it and I go, along with the mismanagement of the forestry, along with the mismanagement, like the most basic mismanagement to me was how did the pump houses that keep pressure to the fire hydrants, how did those get burnt up? How were those offline and unable to pump water to the fire hydrants? Now, and here's the other problem. How much do we know? Because if you go on X and you read one thing, and then you go on the New York Times and read something else, and you go on to LA Times and read something, I don't know. And that's one of the big problems right now is you see these different things and you go, is this right? I sent you something. It was that picture of the fire hydrant that was in rainbow colors. And how much did they pay? Well, I went, after I sent it to you, I was like, there's no way this is real. I went, yeah, it wasn't real. It was a satire site. Somebody used Gronk or one of the AIs to do it. Meanwhile, I see other pictures of the reservoir right up the road, basically empty. I don't know. And that's part of the problem here with all this is we're almost in a post-factual world of who can you rely on? Because where it used to be, and this is an ongoing theme with us, it used to be you could probably get a pretty good idea, the who, what, where, when, why, through the media, right? And the why, that's kind of where you got iffy, right? Yeah. Okay, well, LA Times says this and New York Times says this is the why. But the who, what, where, and how, you could usually get you can't get that even anymore.
Right.
And that's where it makes it difficult. Like I would ask with these private fire agencies that come in, where are they getting their water? Well, I don't know. Did they pay for the water? I remember years ago, there was a whole to-do about celebrities going in and overwatering their houses. I think Barbara Streisand, had her estate was nice and green and everything else all around her was crap. Well, but again, what are they paying? Or if you're a celebrity and they say, we are going to fine you $25,000 if you use more water than you're allotted. And they go, okay. I mean, there was a point where Elton John was spending something like $600,000 a month on credit cards.
Yeah.
You think Barbara Streisand really cares?
Yeah. We'll see. But that goes into the whole, that goes into that whole decades long mismanagement, right? You got the wonderful company, who basically owns 85% of the reservoirs in California for pistachios. And I mean, there's been documented. I mean, they came out with an entire documentary of how private, agriculture has bought out, and they did secret agreements to own the water rights for California. And that's, I mean, you have nobody to blame but yourself when you sold it to them.
And water rights, if you think of historically, water rights have been forever.
Yeah,
this isn't an American thing. If you go back and you look at different, it definitely is an American thing. As far as, so just to limit, let's say in the American, as far as what we're talking about, water rights has always been a huge thing as far as where you're able to get water and who owns the water when it's coming down. Is it public? Is it private? Yep. Can you go in and can you use the water for irrigation, or does it need to come down? Years ago, the Los Angeles River was a river. Now, the Los Angeles River is a stream that might get to the Pacific because when you started off, you're going from the Intermountain West and, the Rocky Mountains, and it's coming down. A lot of it is in Bear Lake in northern Utah. It goes down the Green River, or from Colorado on the Colorado River, it goes down to Hoover Dam outside of Vegas. And then from there, it got shot down towards Phoenix. And of course, Vegas is using water. Yep. And as Phoenix and Vegas got bigger, hey, there you go. Now the groundwater is getting used. By the time it gets to LA, there's just not much there. So that's where in the 50s, when you had a lot of these reservoirs being built, that was kind of the ideal is, hey, we need to make sure we have the water available. And now in the last couple of decades, you have the stuff where we're actually removing reservoirs in the name of natural habitat. I just read one. It was for the smelt. It's an inch long fish. And then they turned out and they said, oh, we just figured out this is the wrong fish. This isn't the environmental. This isn't the one that's actually endangered. It's a different one. They look the same. And the weirdest part is it said genetically, like DNA, it's a DNA match, but they're different fish. I don't know how that works. I mean, is that like identical twins? Bobby and Danny, they're identical twins. They have the same DNA, but they're different. But yeah, and we're not even getting into the mismanagement of things like the mental health issues and the arsonists, the homeless people who light fires because they're
stuff on fire because they're just anarchists.
Well, it's not it, and it might be that, but it's also this. It's okay. I was sleeping outside this business, and this business came out and watered me down and sprayed me out of here. And so, you know what? I'm going to go back, and that night I'm going to light their garbage can on fire, and it burns up the side of their building. And so, there is mental illness. There are arsonists. There are also very cognizant homeless people who get pissed off because of how they're treated.
They're just spiteful because it's like, well, hell, I don't have anywhere to stay. Guess what? Now you're homeless too. It's like,
right?
It's just a series of unfortunate events, and unfortunately, no one has had the umph, if you will, to just say, okay, enough with the bullshit. we got to put a stop to it, right? Because you're not going to stand up to agriculture, right? You're not going to tell Big Ag, hey, you can't take the water. We're not going to do it. We're all right. We just can't allow.
Well, you don't want to either.
Well, no, because I mean, where's your money?
You got to grow stuff,
right? I mean Feinstein
again,
Feinstein. When you got again, that's where we go into the lobbyist again. You got your senators like Feinstein going in there saying, hey, well, they need pistachios. Do we really need pistachios? As opposed to water.
But I mean, when you're looking at Fresno, the Green Valley, I mean, that is a major avocados, pistachios, almonds. There's a lot of stuff that is grown in California. It used to be a very, very strong agricultural area. And then, especially in the last couple of decades, when the water taps have basically been turned off, they've turned large swaths of that area into dust bowls. And so that's where, to me, I think you could have a balance. I think there's a way, and that the first way to do it is with reservoirs. But then you have the Sierra Club come in, and then you have the environmentalist lobbies that won't allow it.
They've done studies to say, okay, hey, this is the way we can do it. But what happened is the lobbyists of those big agriculture companies have suppressed those studies by saying, hey, no. Like, again, I hate to keep picking on them, but they're the ones that come to mind right now. The owners of the wonderful company, but they just, they do as corporations do. They donate a lot of money to UCLA, especially in their research and philanthropy department, who funds the research environmental research branch that comes out with the environmental studies that say, oh no, we're not harming the groundwater. These earthquakes are completely unrelated to the fact that, we don't have any groundwater anymore. And, everything that was holding the state up is no longer there. So,
okay. So then is maybe the question then is this a double-sided sword? We're getting cut from both sides. You're getting cut from the corporate side, who's using more water than they should, including the groundwater. And then you have the environmentalist side that say, well, we can't have things like reservoirs because that ruins, that part of the environment. You never get it back.
Yeah, of course.
Because so I mean, you're shooting yourself in the foot and then turning around and going, oh, my foot really hurts.
It's like, I don't know myself in the other foot.
Right?
Yeah, because you got the population expanding, right? You got the population expanding, and the environments are saying, well, you can't go this way, you can't go that way because you're going to kill this weird fish, right? And then you got the corporation saying, well, you can't come this way because we own all this land and we need it for farmland, and we own the water rights, so you can't get any water here.
I think at least with the corporations, though, you're getting something out of it. You know what I mean? If you're getting almonds and you're getting avocados and you're getting lettuce and you're getting agriculture.
As a citizen, you're not benefiting. They're not giving it directly back to you. You have to buy it at cost. They're not.
Well, that's not necessarily true either, though, because the state is collecting taxes, right? They're getting things. Now, is the avocado cartel?
I mean,
but
that goes back into that whole trickle down economics. Oh, well, we pay taxes, and as long as we pay taxes, you should benefit from it. And then we see how that works out, and it doesn't really work out.
And I don't necessarily agree with that, though. I don't think corporations have any moral obligation to necessarily give money to people. They don't. They're there to provide a product.
I'm with you on that. I believe they should pay. Like, they should pay taxes. I don't need them donating anything.
Okay, so they are. So, but let's set that aside for a second. So, because we're talking about the fire side, right? So, and this is my problem with the environmental side. When you have, and just in the way California thinks in general, and we've talked about this, $25 billion to build a high-speed rail from Los Angeles to San Francisco that nobody really wants, right? 25 billion. They've spent 9 billion of it and laid 0 feet of track. Okay. So where's that 9 billion go? It goes to environmental studies. It goes to people who are involved in saying yay or nay. And the more that they say nay, the more money they get, because now it's like, well, okay, if you say nay, I need to have this report done. Who's doing the report? Oh, guess what? I am. I'm the one who said no. Well, I need another report. Okay, well, it's going to cost you $250,000. Oh, okay. Well, we need that report to get this line done. Yes, you do. Okay, so here's your 250. Great. Here's your report. Well, this report says we can't do it. Yep. Well, how do we get it? You got to figure it. This is the Army's infamous for this. Hey, the answer is no. Well, okay, what do I need to do? I don't know, but the answer is no. So this is something Greg Easterbrook has written about this, about the people that are writing the reports are the ones that are making the money. It's
of course
it's money laundering to some degree, or it's not money laundering. It's a scam. So it's a way for certain people to make money. Now there are legitimate environmental engineers.
Opportunity.
Yes, I used to date a girl that was in it that did this kind of stuff, but it was more hey, we're building a shopping center, so how do we build the drainage so we don't get flooded out if there's rains, right? So there are some very legitimate things there, but when you're talking about Los Angeles and the groundwater and the fires and all this stuff, we haven't even gotten into the dumb circumstances. I saw a video of Rogan talking about this in like 2017, where he said, look, I had a firefighter friend that we were talking about this because at the time, I guess there were some fires. He said, all there needs to be is the wrong time at the wrong place with the wrong type of winds. And it doesn't matter. It's gonna be a tinderbox because these Santa Ana winds come in at 40 to 70 miles per hour. You get the wrong spark in the wrong place. It's not here. It goes, and it just goes everywhere. And it doesn't matter how good a system you have. It's going to be overwhelming. And I think that's what we've actually seen here. So then the question becomes, okay. And I get it when people go, oh, right and left limits. And, if you're on the right or left, because I see it on the left saying, well, what would Republicans have done to stop this? And, Republicans going, well, I mean, first of all, maybe I've said this, you need to have controlled burns. This is something that Trump was talking about with Rogan last year. But ultimately, you have some of the other stuff. Like, I don't know if this one's true, and maybe you've researched it, that all the neighboring states sent fire crews in, but instead of going right to Los Angeles, they had to go to Sacramento to get emissions checked. They had to get their vehicles.
Yeah, that's not true.
Was that disproven?
Yeah, that was disbunked.
Okay. But again, that's the type of thing, like, why do it's so insane that we have people trying to score political points by saying that, right?
Well, you know why people are doing stuff like that, because it drums up the confusion. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different what ifs. I mean, we're at the point now where we can Monday morning quarterback the hell out of this thing, right? We saw this
still going, unfortunately.
Yeah, but we saw this problem, since Schwarzenegger was governor, right? We saw this. We saw this coming for a very long time. Sure. It's just unfortunate that it hit now. You know what I mean? And the only thing we can do now is just hope that this is the activating event that people will finally say, okay, let's finally do something about it.
Do you think, I've seen this, do you think this is the red pill moment for Democrats not even Democrats, voters in California, that they look at it and they say, we've had a Democrat as a mayor in Los Angeles for the last 120 years, and we've had a governor, I believe it's something like, out of the last 90 years, it's been something like all but 2 governors have been Democrats. I don't know what the exact are, but do you think
over the last?
Well, you had Schwarzenegger and you had Reagan.
No. Since 1970, it's been 3 and 3. 3 Democrat and 3 Republican. I went back and I looked it up.
What were the year lengths? Because Schwarzenegger did Schwarzenegger get 6
Schwarzenegger
years?
did 2. Schwarzenegger did
2. What did Reagan get?
Reagan did, I think
6.
Reagan did 2 or 1.5. There was.
Are you saying 2 terms or 2 years?
Yeah, 2 terms. 2 terms.
Okay. Did Schwarzenegger get a full 8 years?
I think so. There was a Democrat that did one in he did one right after Reagan, and then he came back in like the late 80s, early 90s.
Brown
did one back to back.
Wait, not Brown. That's not his name.
And then,
oh my God, yeah, no, it's Brown, isn't it?
I think so. It may have been Brown.
Yeah,
but that
he did it twice, and his dad was the governor too.
Yeah, and then the Newsom came in right after Schwarzenegger.
Okay, so let's go back to
what year
do you want to start?
You can do 70. I mean, that gives us what, 30, 40, 50 years plus or minus.
Okay, so we'll go Reagan from 67 to 75. He counts as both. He was a Democrat, and then he became a Republican in office.
Yeah.
And then you had, I've never even heard of this guy, honestly, Dick Majian from 83 to 91. So he got 8 years as a Republican.
Mm-hmm.
Pete Wilson, 8 years as a Republican. Mm-hmm. Gray Davis, 4 years as a Democrat. Schwarzenegger as 8 years as a Republican. And Brown Jr. as so he was 75 to 83. Yeah. And then again from 11 to 19. And now you have Newsom. Yeah. Yeah. So it's actually, that's a lot more. Wow. So really,
that's what I was telling you. So so it isn't a blue or red thing.
We fact checked ourselves.
Yeah. It's not a blue or red thing. It's just a California thing. It's just.
Yeah. Well, but I do think there's a lot of the environmental stuff that goes on. That makes it really tough to do things.
Yeah.
And again, the problem solving, I look at something again, like you take the high-speed rail, throw that out the window, and build giant desalination plants. You can get a massive, the biggest desalination plants like the ones that you have in Israel run between $600 and $800 million. That with the pipelines, you could have every reservoir filled all the time, or even pump it right into the cities. I mean, you can have a desalination plant that is immediately, let's say you had three these major desalination plants, one on the north side, Long Beach, one in Huntington Beach, and one in downtown LA, the pipelines meaning, you could really put a dent into a lot of the water needs in California if you spent the money in a way that would benefit the most number of people. But instead, you're doing high-speed rail that's never going to get built. What are we wagging your finger at?
No, I was trying to think of the name. The Resnicks. That's the name of the Resnicks. And
the Own Wonderful?
The couple. Yep, the couple. The Resnicks. And Feinstein. Feinstein is their girl. Feinstein is their girl.
But she's a Democrat.
Well, I don't care. I look at blues and reds just like I do bloods and crips, man. That doesn't matter to me.
They both get their arms from the same place.
Yeah, it's the same thing. People talk about Republicans and Democrats. They're both gangsters to me. It just depends on what block you're on.
What color you're wearing.
Yeah, yep. They're all criminals. But we got to move on, man. We are 28 minutes into it, so we have got to rock. We will definitely come back. All right, next topic. I've been stewing on this one.
I love this one.
My favorite. My boy Donald Trump takes office in a couple of days, and I would like to start this conversation off by saying, finally, we have an administration who is focused on the things that is on the topics of every American dinner table. I was just telling my wife the other day how important it is that we reclaim the Panama Canal, because I thought it was bullshit how we got rid of it. And I told my wife, I said, you know what? It would be a great idea. I don't care that we pay $8 for eggs and, meat and groceries are through the roof. I don't care how much I pay for groceries. It's not about that. We should annex Canada. And I told my wife, I said, you know what else I care about? I care about real American issues. We should be trying to annex Greenland because that is important to the American people. And I am so glad that this administration is taking the priorities that the real American people care about, like renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. And I cannot wait for this administration to take over so that we can focus on the real things that Americans care about, because I know as a true-blooded American, that's what we voted on, the real issues that Americans care about, and that's renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. What do you got to say, Pope? What you got to say, Chappie? I know you're with me on this one. Come on. I know you with me on this one.
I am, but not with the sarcasm that you have on it.
What are you talking about? You got to be excited for this, man. We are
I am. That's what I mean. But you're totally you don't believe anything you just said. So I did say. So I remember. I'm trying to look at. There's an actual agency that names things in American. I did not know that there was a federal agency, and now I'm trying to look it up on maps. Let's see. It's the national, and seriously, it's like the national naming. Oh, United States Board on Geographic Names. Okay, the USBGN. Okay, so let's start with the Gulf of Mexico one. I thought that one was hilarious because it's like, yeah, Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America. You know how much Florida to Brownsville has this much coastline, and from Brownsville down to the Yucatan has this much. And it's actually, the U.S. actually does have a much longer coastline in the Gulf of Mexico. And somebody put this, I kind of had to laugh at it because I don't know how much Trump is playing 4D chess versus things. He just gets lucky sometimes and people take it and run with it because they were like, I think Trump is playing 4D chess because all of the laws say that we can't have drilling in the Gulf of Mexico. That's what every law says. The laws that say you have to be this far out, the Gulf of Mexico. And if Trump is able to have the USBGN rename it the Gulf of America, then you're not drilling in the Gulf of Mexico at all. And I was like, I guess that's one way of looking at it. That is certainly a way around it. As far as the Panama Canal, I think that was a mistake when Carter relieved and gifted it back to Panama for the amount of money that the United States invested in it, and because it is a actually very strategic thing as far as the Americas go. It actually is a pretty big deal. As far as Canada and Greenland, okay, the Canada one is just funny, right? You've got Trump calling Trudeau the governor of the province of Canada, and Trudeau getting all butthurt and maybe we'll just come in and annex Washington and Oregon. It's like, really, you guys? So, and meanwhile, Trudeau's gone, right? So I'm sure Trump sent him a lovely parting gift, a very nice, $50 out. If I was Trump, that's to me the thing that's just hilarious. I could see Trump sending a Tim Norton's gift card to Trudeau and saying, "Congratulations on your early retirement," something like that. He's just that kind of guy. As far as Greenland goes, if America, now I've seen estimates, depending on how you look at the estimates, from the cost that Alaska was per acre into today's dollars and some of the area, they were looking at Greenland being anywhere between $25 billion and $75 billion if it was purchased at that amount by Denmark. Now, and I was thinking about this because I've seen some things from the people of Denmark, of Greenland. The mayor of Greenland said, we're in control. There's only like 50,000 people that live on Greenland permanently, right? And so we're in control of it. And I looked at it, I went, you could give each of them $100,000 to say, come be part of America. And it would only cost the U.S. another like $2.5 billion, which is not that much in the grand scheme of things. That's like 4 hours of what the U.S. pays in just normal debt, right? If the U.S. was able to purchase Greenland or annex Greenland for under $100 billion, we absolutely should do it for several reasons. One being the security. I mean, it's when you start talking about Russia and you start talking about Europe and how to get troops. Now, it's very difficult during the winter, obviously. But the second thing is the potential resources under Greenland. And that's why I don't think it'll ever happen, because there are potential resources under Greenland that could be very similar to what was in Alaska and what was in Siberia. And if you get to the technology where you're able to get through the permafrost and actually start mining some of this stuff, $75 billion is going to seem like a really bad deal for whoever sold it. So it's bluster. It's fun. I think part of it is, I think Trump just kind of throws stuff out and sees what sticks to the wall. And when people freak out, he's almost like, he's that kid who says, I'm gonna do something crazy, and if there's enough pushback, he goes, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go do it. I'm gonna go, put a bucket of paint on and drop it on the principal's car. Oh, dude, don't do that. That's a bad idea. Oh, yeah, you're probably right. Versus, oh man, you won't do it. You wouldn't go do that. You won't do it. Oh yeah, watch this. I kind of think that's what the Greenland thing is, and it really doesn't matter. I mean, if we think we can take back the Panama Canal, I mean, Panama's not going to sell it to us. Why would they? They're not even close. Biggest moneymaker. They make so much money from every ship that comes through. It'd be insane. Oh, great. Here we go. All right. Play it.
Just so you know.
That's where I say, oh, can't hear it.
When President Trump said that he's going to rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, that I directed my ledge staff to immediately draft legislation, and we are entering it right now to officially change the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. And Congress has to do this because we have to fund the name change in maps. We have to fund the name change through all types of, like the military, FAA, etc. And it's absolutely the right thing to do. We change post office names all the time up here. You better bet we are absolutely going to change the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Let's go.
Dude, like there's just certain things. You can just put certain things that make me automatically go, oh, never mind, I was wrong. And playing her is one of you can play me her, you can play me Bobbert, you can play me AOC, you can play me Pelosi, and you will absolutely change my mind like that if they're agreeing with whatever I'm saying. I would be like, nope, never mind, I was wrong.
Oh my God.
I do think it's funny though. We're gonna change because you need to fund maps.
Listen, man.
Fund
I was
maps.
told this was an economic issue. I was told.
Oh, it is.
Policies. I was told the policies didn't work. And then I said, hey,
which policies?
I said the tax policies, the economic policies. I was said, hey, man.
Current.
I was told the current administration's policies didn't work. The policies are wrong. And then I said, hey, man, these policies were enacted by 45 and they don't expire until 2025. And then I was told, no, this is an economic policy. The groceries are too high. The prices of everything are way too high. They need to come down, right? And then the candidate who got elected said, no, we're going to get the prices down. We're going to focus on that. That's going to be my main priority. And I said, okay, cool. And then the first thing he said after he won the election is, hey, man, we can't get the prices down. We're not going to get the prices down. We're not even going to focus on that. That's what he said. That's what he said in the interview. And then I said, okay, cool. All right. So that's what you said. All right, cool. Well, what are your priorities? Then he said, well, my priority is we're going to focus on what Americans really care about. We're going to get the Panama Canal back. We're going to change the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. We're going to make Canada the 51st state. And then we're going to go get Greenland. So much so that I'm going to send my son as an unofficial ambassador to Greenland to see if they want to sell it to us. I didn't make any of this up. I wish I did.
First of all, you wouldn't send emissaries to Greenland. Greenland is a protectorate of Denmark.
I wish I did. I didn't make any of this.
So here's the thing, though. I mean, okay. Here's part of the problem, and we've talked about this, right? We've talked about how there's what the candidate says versus what the candidate can do, right? Okay. So there's also the side of what the president says versus what the president can do, right? Okay.
Tell me you had this on your bingo board. Tell me you had annexing Canada on your bingo board, or changing the Gulf of Mexico to America, or annexing Greenland, or the Gulf of Mexico.
I will tell you this. For years, I have thought the smartest thing for America and Canada would be a merger. I do believe that would actually be a very positive thing.
Because I think we will have the world's strongest economy if we were to do that. So I'm okay with that.
Yes, because of the natural resources, and really there's not a huge difference between Canadians and Americans. The reason it doesn't work as much with Spanish, more than anything, is just language barrier, right? It'd be very difficult to have
even though Canada will never go for it, I would be okay with it. If he could pull it off, he'd be one hell of a damn business.
Oh, sure.
But
I don't think. Yeah, no. But I don't think he's going to pull. I think Greenland. Okay, so let's look at the order of those. It was Gulf of Mexico renamed, Panama Canal, Canada, and Greenland. Okay,
Yes.
if you're going to say those four, the most likely, well, the Gulf of Mexico being the Gulf of America. That's just legislation. That's easy. That is a naming thing. That they don't have to rely on anybody else. If nobody else in the world wants to call it that, what do we care? It really doesn't matter. You know, the Russia is not called Russia in Russian. It's something else, right? Like let's use Taiwan. So I lived in Taiwan for 2 years. So when I come back and I hear people say Chinese names, especially the Olympics, drove me bonkers because you'd hear Costas in Beijing today. Okay, there's no JH. There's no zhe in the Chinese language. It's Beijing. Mm-hmm. Beijing. That's what it is. Jing. Taipei. Not Taipei, Taipei. Because the romanization was so bad by the guy who went over and first wrote it. It was Peking. Peking. What? It's Beijing. It's just the romanization sucked, right? So renaming something from the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, okay, I think that's probably the easiest. The second easiest, probably Greenland. Now, do I think that means it's going to happen? No, I give Mexico about a 50-50 chance. Greenland, I'm being super generous when I say 10%. I don't think it's even that, honestly. Maybe Denmark says, hey, we could use a cool 50 billion. But all the other side I've seen with the pressure that Trump could put on Denmark is saying, look, you guys aren't paying anything into NATO. And so if you're not going to pay anything into NATO, Greenland is strategically a military location that we will cover you for the next, we'll cover your X percentage of GDP because it's supposed to be 2% of your GDP. We'll cover your GDP into NATO for the next 50 years. And you give us Greenland. It wouldn't cost the U.S. a dime at that point because we're already paying how much towards NATO. I could see something being worked out, right? Panama Canal, again, I don't think would happen. That would be the next one, under 1%. Canada it's only slightly above absolute zero. I love Canada. They're great people. But Canadians are just as proud as Texans. And so, it's kind of like, how do you know there's a Texan in the room? They'll tell you. How do you know there's a Canadian in the room? They'll tell you. And that's fine. I mean, there's pride. I don't personally have a lot of pride in my state just because I've lived so many different places. But as far as priorities go, I think there's also that idea of, I hope this is the case. I hope Trump's priorities, the first thing he does is he wipes out all executive orders under Biden, and then he doesn't issue any new executive orders because executive orders are not the right way to do government. It's supposed to come through the legislature. And I hope that he does that. Do I have faith that he'll do that? Oh, heck no. He'll probably sign one of the first things he's going to sign is the border wall. He'll try to do that. But even then, we saw how far that went. If you don't have funding, which is, again, ridiculous, I'm a little disappointed that I understand it, though, of him not going to California yet. I kind of thought he would. If nothing else, it's a good photo op for him to be there. It's going to be interesting to see how well he works with Newsom.
He was invited.
I'm sure he was. But invited and actually invited, and he was invited. Then, there are two very different things there. And I think that once he's president,
he was invited through the press. Let me say that he was invited through the press.
Oh, sure. And that's the thing is, and you could have Newsom come out and say, "Oh, we absolutely invited him." Well, how'd you do that? Oh, well, I said it on Meet the Press last week that he could come to California anytime he wanted.
Yeah.
What does that mean, right? Second of all, does the president need an invitation to go visit the area? Third, should he go visit the area because of the disruption that it would potentially cause to firefighters and the area?
Weirdly enough,
anywhere the president goes.
Weirdly enough, Biden has done. Biden
he has or has not. I'm shocked. Oh, shocking! But he's so energetic, KJ. We're gonna leave the old man alone. We won't get into the old man today.
My man got 8 days in the wake up, man. He's on terminal leave.
He's been on terminal leave for a while. So, okay, after the fact, so Reagan was out at the beginning of '89, and then afterwards, since then, it's came out. He started slipping a little bit in '87, and a little bit more in '88. '89, once he got out of office, he really took a huge downturn after he was out of office. And a lot of the stuff he did as far as the Iran-Contra was probably wasn't as bad. It was probably an excuse. A lot of Iran-Contra, I don't remember, he was probably sharper than what he said in that. So with Biden coming out of office, I think what you're going to see in the only thing in the next 8 days to me that is really going to be interesting is the pardons. What is he going to do for pardons? So you're looking at, on the screen we have POTUS, priorities, promises, and annexations. And what that should read is President-elect, POTUS. But
Trump has been POTUS since about December 12th-ish, plus or minus.
Although I do love seeing the TikTok videos of Trump was elected president 2 months ago and he hasn't done anything yet.
I think Biden kind of threw his hands up around 1st of December and was like, you know what, y'all got it. I think he was so upset with the way the election went and just how everything played out. He just kind of threw his hands up and just.
I think he's come out since and said, "I wish I'd stayed in.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have let him push me out." Yeah,
he did.
I mean, you saw the body language at the Carter funeral. Oh,
it's one of those things, man. He was not in a position to win. Like the spirit was with him, but he just wasn't ready. And again, he shouldn't have never. I mean, I hate going back to it. He shouldn't have never primaried. He shouldn't have never primaried. That's going to be one of the great what ifs.
So I will say this. I think even if, so you believe that Biden should have announced a year and a half ago that he was not going to run for a second term and allowed a primary to occur, correct?
That was his promise. That was Biden's promise.
You believe that that's probably what would have been best for Democrats.
Biden should have stuck to his word. When he got elected, he said he was a transitional president. He was only there to defeat Trump, and he was going to pass the torch. That was his words. That was
somebody in power. Somebody
I know, power right?
To give up power. Oh,
I know.
My pearls.
Believe it or not, yeah. So when it came to when it came,
I will say this:
machine. It's the machine, man.
I'll say this:
all his primaries.
I think this election, in not to the same degree, but in a lot of ways, mirrored the Obama election. I think it really didn't matter who they put up. I can't think of anybody that. For sure. There was a ton of machinations behind the scenes. But the problem is, are we ever going to find out? It's kind of like, does somebody do the tell-all book? I would, if there was a tell-all book that I want the Lakers, Kobe, Shaq seasons. That's the tell-all book I want. But I think that the situation this year with how Trump was, and especially after the assassination attempt and all that stuff, I don't think it mattered who it would have been. Because first of all, I think Harris still would have been the nominee. I think she was positioned not only by being the sitting vice president, but also being an African American female helped her. As far as the primaries go,
she wouldn't have made it out of the primaries, man.
I think there's too many people that would have supported her. Yeah, I mean, the next one, the people are talking about Pete Buttigieg. Really?
The only way she made it out of the primary is if the machine rigged it for her.
I think they would have, though.
And that's being honest. We saw how she performed, right? I love the sister to death. You know, I love the sister to death. She was just not ready for prime time. She was just not ready for prime. She was not the candidate to put up against. She didn't have the experience. Buttigieg would have crushed her in the debate. Hell, what's the boy in not North Carolina? What's the boy Kentucky? Bashir would have crushed her in Kentucky. The boy in Pennsylvania would have wiped the floor with her.
Shapiro.
That's why he didn't want to be his running mate. That's why he didn't want to be a running mate. He would have.
Oh, you think that's why? So he could run in 28?
Absolutely, he would have crushed her. If you'd have put them on the stage together at against each other, who you think would have got the most votes?
Sorry, I was reading what Liberty said. Say your question again.
If you'd have put the boy from Pennsylvania and Kamala on the stage together and gave them equal time, who you think would have won?
Harris.
No way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Governor of Pennsylvania would have crushed.
The reason.
Have you ever heard him debate?
It doesn't matter. So here's the reason. When you have such a push in this country, especially from the left, the identity politics would have come into play. Even if let's go with Shapiro. Shapiro absolutely wipes her out. She looks stupid, right? Okay. Shapiro wipes her out. She looks stupid. You would have so many people on the left absolutely come out against Shapiro simply because he's Jewish and supports Israel. And with what was going on with Palestine this summer, with her being the first potential African-American and female, that's strike one, strike two against Shapiro, white, male. Okay. I just think that because the Democrats had dug their own hole when it comes to the politics of identity, I think that's where it happened. Now, in 4 years, I think you have a more open situation because you did have Harris being black, being female, that they can say, well, look, the last candidate was an African-American female. If the next one is, great. If the next one's not, that's fine too. I don't think the politics identity, and you're going to have a lot of people on the Democratic side, not the left. Now remember, Republicans, conservatives, Democrats, left. Okay, so there are different steps there. But I think you would have more people, right? I think you'd have more people in the Democratic caucus that basically would go, you know what, this identity politics thing, we kind of got lucky with Biden, and how with COVID and the newness of the mail-in ballots, the strength of the mail-in ballots, which Republicans definitely took advantage of this time and cut the gap to a significant margin where it really was almost a wash.
Yep.
So in 2028, you're going to have, I think, a full-on rush on both sides, which is going to be fun. I do think it's really interesting that Gen X on the Republican side, I think, is going to get skipped. I don't think Gen Xers like you and me, I don't think we're going to get a candidate.
Well, we're going to
have candidates. I don't think we're going to have a president.
They're going to skip. The Democrats would be wise to skip Gen X too.
See, I think you're okay with Gen X if it's a younger. Well, actually, you know what? They already had a Gen Xer.
You got to go millennial. You have to.
They already had a Gen Xer, didn't they? Isn't Obama Gen X?
No, Obama was what? Obama's 56. Obama's damn near 60, man.
He's at least close.
He's close. He's close.
I'm sure this is great for everybody. Oh, hey, look, let's pay attention while the POGs are looking up when Obama was born.
He's like a twin. Yeah, he's like a tweener.
Yeah, he was 61.
Yeah.
So when let's see. So he's not really a boomer.
No, like I said, he's on that line. But I mean, you would be wise to skip Gen X and go straight either millennial. You have to go millennial.
So it says Gen X is generally defined as mid 60s to early 80s.
Right.
So Obama was just short of Gen X.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't think you're necessarily wrong. I think you could have some pretty strong candidates that are Gen X on either side. I think and again, I'm a lot less familiar with who's what ages, but like Newsom, I gotta assume is Gen X, right?
Yeah.
Stacey Abrams is probably Gen X.
Yep. Those are the stalwarts. You got Bashir, you got Shapiro, you got what's the transportation secretary? The Buttigieg. You got those guys. Those are all my peers, right, on the blue team. So, but they'll be going like the problem you're gonna have is on the red team is how well Trump and these guys do for this first 18.
Oh, for sure.
Because if this first 18 goes awry, the VP is gonna catch hell. He is going to catch hell as the standard bearer.
It depends on. I think with Vance, it's going to depend on what he is tasked with. Like Harris was tasked with the border, and then we had the gaslighting of America. Oh, she was never the border czar. Look, you want to get technical and say she was never named the border czar, fine, but she was.
But but you were able to pin it to him. You were able to pin it. That's
so, and that's my question: is how involved is Vance going to be? Because Trump has said he's going to be very involved. Right. And if Vance can come in and say, "Look, this is where I was involved in the purchase of Greenland. I was involved in renaming the Gulf of America. I was instrumental in negotiating the Panama Canal, and hey, look, we took over, we annexed Toronto." And people go, "Oh yeah, those are all great things," and he did it. Yeah, great. But if it's, well, we were 0 for 4 on those, and Vance was the person that was the front man on all 4 of those, then you're right. Yeah. My wife wanted me to bring up something, and we weren't talking about this, but she said, what do I think about Doge with Ramaswamy and X Elon? So, and that's, I think that is another one that it's going to be really, really interesting to say after, what did they say? They allegedly, there's a kill date on Doge of July 4th, 2026. Is that right?
Plus or minus. I
thought that was the date they said. It's
experimental. And Elon has already come out and said that, hey, that number we put out was extremely optimistic, right? He was like, realistically, we'll probably get nowhere close to that number.
Okay.
He was like, in all honesty, there's just too much bureaucracy. There's too much red tape for us to go through.
That's easy. Yeah, that one's easy, because if you get to July 4th of 2026 and it's working, and you're able to say, look, we have spent $5 billion, Doge has spent $5 billion, but we've actually cut and saved 200 billion, everybody's going to go, oh yeah, we'll keep going. That's easy, right? But if it's not, if it's a boondoggle, or if they just don't accomplish anything, because you could have the other side. You could come out and they say, look, we've tried to do this, this, and this, and this, and the legislature has basically cut our knees out from under us.
You got some conservative dudes in Congress that have stood up, and I was like, oh, this isn't going to be as easy as I thought. I was like, oh, I was pretty impressed. Like, especially like during the House Speaker vote, they flexed a little muscle, and I was like, oh. I was like, that was
3 guys. There were 3 guys. So,
but you only have a 2-seat majority though, so that 3 is important,
right? But those 3 guys. Okay, so here becomes the question: it's the Manchin question. Did Manchin and what's her name for Arizona? Cinema. No, that's not how you say it, is it?
That's her name, Cinema. Yeah,
like the movies. That's how you said it.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. We'll call it the Manchin then.
Welcome to our world. Now you got to figure out. Are you really with us, or like what? What's going on, man?
Right. Did Manchin hold things up because he thought it was good for the country, or he was able to personally get more out of it? That's of course. But like Cinema, she was going, look, I don't think that it's good for the country to get rid of the filibuster because we're going to be in the minority at some point. And it cost her Senate seat. The Democrats went, you're out.
It's about the country. Cinema didn't give two shits. She was padding her pockets for interest. She saw the writing on the
tomato for a politician.
Cinema was so full of shit from the day she walked in the door. She knew what it was, and it was a cash grab from jump. And that's cool.
You know what's
She's
interesting?
doing the same thing.
She's about her.
The same thing that old boy is doing in Pennsylvania right now.
Fetterman?
Old boy that had the stroke, Fetterman.
Oh, I don't know. Fetterman's weird, man. Like when I say Fetterman, when you go, okay, that dude was a hard leftist and he had a stroke and brain damage, and now he's a conservative. I don't know if that makes us look good or bad at that point.
Fetterman is an opportunist. He sees the money on the wall. He sees the writing on the wall, and he's going to where the money is flowing. And that I'm not mad at him. You got to do what you got to do to save your seat. And I get it. Politics is a game of survival, and you got to survive. You got to play the cards that are in front of you, and I get it. But I just, you know what I mean? It's just, that's why I said there's no such thing as blue or red, man. They all play the
Green.
same damn pool. That's it.
It's green.
It depends on, who got the most, who got the money.
Speaking of green, let's talk NIL.
Let's go. All right. Yeah, we kind of went. Yeah. Whew, here we go. College level free agency has been running a muck. Most notably, my boy Carson Beck. You broke my heart. Actually, not really, man. I saw the writing on the wall. When the boy showed the keys to the Lamborghini, I knew we were done. I knew our season was over. Then he came out with his girlfriend from Miami. I said, oh, the boy ain't even focused. And then he proceeded to throw the most interceptions he ever threw in his career. And then he went to the sideline and threw his shoulders up like, oh, well, I already cashed the check. I'm good. I knew then our season was done. And that just excavated, exacerbated, or I can't even pronounce
Exasperated.
Exasperated. Thank you. A bigger issue that we see in college football right now, the NIL is akin to just college level free agency, man, with no regulation, man. These boys are out. What are they called? They're not called agents. What are they called? They're like liaisons.
Well, they're NIL sponsors or corporations. So representatives.
The representatives speak on behalf of athletes, and they go out and they send out inquiries and say, hey, potentially if my 5-star recruit would possibly transfer over to your school, what incentives could he possibly be looking at if he were to jump into the portal and sign an agreement with you? And they do it for a pretty exorbitant amount.
So here's the crazy thing. A lot of these guys are doing it when they don't have that person as a client.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's use Carson Beck as an example. We won't use him. We're going to use quarterback Snuffy Jones, right? Quarterback Snuffy Jones, who is at the University of Albany, and he had a really good JUCO year, and he is looking. He's been great, and his NIL deal at Albany is pretty good. But this representative, he goes out and he calls, let's say Georgia, and he calls USC, and he calls Oregon. He says, "Hey guys, I know that all three of you, hey USC, I know that you had your quarterback position, University of Utah. Your quarterback position was trash this year. You had your starting quarterback was hurt the whole time. You went through 4 quarterbacks. If this guy, if I had a guy who I don't know threw for 4,000 yards and had 29 touchdowns against 5 interceptions. If he were to come up in the portal and was willing to come to the University of Utah, what kind of deal could you put together for him? So you have NIL coordinators at the school also. Now, they may not be employed by the school. It's generally more the boosters, right? And they get this phone call from this rep, and they say, well, we don't know who specifically you're talking about. 28 touchdowns and 5 interceptions is a pretty specific number. How many yards did he throw? Did he throw 4,289 yards? And the guy says, matter of fact, that is a guy I'm, let's say that's the number he did. Well, we could probably come up with, we've talked to our guys. If somebody like that came on the portal, we could probably come around 2.1 million. And the representative then, because he's not an agent, he calls Snuffy and he says, hey, Snuffy, I was wondering, I was talking to your mom and dad. I was wondering if I could talk to you as well. I'd like to get you guys on the conference call. Hey, I was wondering if you guys would be interested in potentially, I know you may or may not be happy at the University of Albany, but I have a deal that if you were willing to go play somewhere in the Intermountain West, maybe a rival of, I don't know, BYU, let's say, that maybe you like the color red. If you would like to if you were to enter the portal, I think you would be in line for somewhere around 2.1 million as an NIL. Now, I know you're not committed to anything. I'm not offering you anything, but if you are looking to enter the portal and you need somebody to represent you to get that amount of money, that NIL deal, I would love to be your rep, and I can get you something pretty close to what we're talking about. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So the parents are going, cool, 2.1, and the kids going, 2.1, cool. I'm only making I'm only making 300,000 at Albany, even though because I was maybe I wasn't the highest recruited as a freshman or coming out of high school, and I had 2 good years, and now wow, $2.1 million, and I'd love to go play in the NFL, but let's be realistic. Out of all the quarterbacks, there's 128 programs in, FBS football. I think it's 128, might be 130.
Yeah.
Out of all those quarterbacks, there's maybe 10 that are going to play in the NFL next year. Maybe 6 might get drafted, another 4 free agents, somewhere around there. And most of them aren't, the rookie pay in the NFL, if you're undrafted, is somewhere around 600,000. And you're telling me I can make 2.1 million just by going and play for a different university? Yeah. Sounds like pretty good plan. And then the representative is taking anywhere between 20 and 30% of that fee. Meanwhile, an NFL agent is making between 5 and 7%. Jeez. So not only is it out of control, my question is, when does this go? And hopefully the states don't allow this, because states are the ones that do the high school. And if you're not an amateur athlete, you can't play high school. If it gets down to that next level, though, now I'm torn. Especially if you have a kid. Okay, so my son wants to play soccer. He's good, not great. Okay, I know a kid who works as he's national, like legitimately getting looked at national team stuff. Okay, So this kid, he's going to be playing high school ball this year as a junior. Plays highest level of club ball. This summer he went and he had an audition with one of the teams in Spain, La Liga, trained with them for a little bit. Okay, so this kid's legitimate, right? He has a legitimate. He will most likely play college ball somewhere at the very least on scholarship. Okay, so if you're an agent and you say, well, I want to get into the high school AAU circuit for soccer players, and I want to get these kids. And I go to this kid and say, and his parents and say, hey, I can get you a deal, an NIL deal. Because remember, all NIL is we are able to use your likeness. That's it, basically. I can show you in an advertisement. I can put you in a commercial, whatever. And I'm able to give you $50,000, basically, so just I can use your pictures in advertising. Like, my friends, that would help them quite a bit. $50,000 for parents when they're paying a lot of money for travel. I know how much I pay, and my son's just normal travel ball. It's $5,000 to $10,000 a year just for travel ball. I know your daughter with volleyball. If she got into travel volleyball, you're looking.
It is significant.
Yeah,
they got a tournament in Vegas coming up at the end of the month. It is
right.
It's significant.
And that's and you're right. And that's before that's just the fees. That's before you start adding in your travel fees and your hotel fees and your rest fees. This is just basic to pay the coaching and your team.
Yeah.
So that becomes the question. So if a kid goes out and he's a high schooler and he's offered $50,000, is he going to be able to? Is he going to be able to continue to play, or do the states say no? You are a true student. The athletics at the high school level is for amateur, and so we're not going to allow that. And I think the problem you're going to run in there is very similar to what you have with the trans athletes right now, is that every state looks at it differently. Yeah. Like, for example, Connecticut looks at it and says, hey, if you're trans and you're a biological male and you transition to female and you want to go run track, cool, go run track. And you can run with the girls and, set every state record there is. And that has happened. Meanwhile, somewhere in, I'm not even sure what states have passed. I think there's about 28 states that have passed and said, look, you compete against the biological that you are. Utah, I think Governor Cox out there, he vetoed the bill, even though it might have been overridden by veto. They might have overridden it. Without going into ours, and we're not going down that path right now. All we're talking about is just how states have their own ideas about how to run athletics. So it's going to be interesting to see, because I think at some point you might actually see that happen. Years ago, about 10 years ago, there was a 13 or 14-year-old that got offered when Lane Kiffin was at USC. He got offered a scholarship at USC. He ended up playing in the NFL
Nice.
as a receiver now, though. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. But Todd Marinovich in the 90s, he was a kid that his dad basically built him as a quarterback. And he ended up going to USC. I believe he played a little bit with the Raiders, but he was on the Sports Illustrated coming out of high school as the #1 overall recruit. And so, for everyone
about him,
yeah, for every one LeBron James, the can't miss prospect that becomes LeBron James, there's probably 10 or 15 the next greatest that don't hit.
Bosworth.
Well, but even Brian Bosworth, I mean, he didn't hit in the NFL necessarily,
but
in college, he was a superstar.
He was
what does Brian Bosworth make? Let's say after his sophomore year.
Oh my God.
What does Brian Bosworth make in NIL?
Are you kidding me? Between him and Bo Jackson and NIL, they would have made a killing. Jeez.
Bo Jackson, Herschel Walker, Steve Young. Steve Young went to BYU and he would have made a killing.
Jeez.
Jim McMahon. Yeah, there's these guys how much would Flutie have made?
So I understand the argument, right? So a lot of these guys, that's why I'm not necessarily against the NIL.
I'm not either.
The great majority of these guys will never see success on the pro level.
Never get a paycheck.
You got to understand, these guys start playing football at Pee Wee League at 4 years old. They spend their entire lives playing the game. So at college, that is it for them, right? Most of these guys, they get their college degree and then they're off to be teachers or car salesmen or whatever. They go into a professional life and they hang their cleats up. That's it for them, right? So if they're able to capitalize on a lifetime full of work, if you do the math, that's 20 years of their life's work, right? They should be able to receive some type of financial recompense from that, right? Or some type of financial restitution for that life's work. So I'm not against it. I do think there has to be some type of regulation, right? We can't just be freestyling, right? You can't just let 18-year-old kids, pick and choose and every year go to the highest bidder. You know what I'm saying? If you're going to do it, you're going to have to structure it like a free agent's contract.
Without destroying the sport.
Yeah. Like I don't have a problem giving you $2 million, $4 million. However, you're about to sign this 4-year contract, and I'm about to teach you economics. You're about to learn lessons of life. If I'm going to treat you like an adult and give you all this adult money, I'm going to teach you an economic lesson about contracts, right? So there has to be some, there has to be some kind of way. And when it comes down to high schools, we kind of talked about this a little bit offline. If I'm able to allow my kid to go work at McDonald's or wash cars or something after school for minimum wage, $5.15 an hour, if my kid has exceptional talent and they're being recruited nationally, why in the hell can't I allow them to sign an NIL deal for $50,000 if they're a nationally ranked junior, if they're being scouted by Division I schools, if they're able to sign a national letter of intent for Division I schools, hell, if they're able to commit to a college junior year or senior year, why in the hell can't they commit to, you're able to sign a contract for the military as a junior, go to basic training, come back and do your senior year, and then go off to basic and then go off to the military. Why the hell can you not go off and do the same thing for a college contract? So I see a little bit of a double standard there. I'm all about kids, economically benefiting themselves. I don't have a problem with it. I do believe there needs to be some kind of, regulation. And obviously we can't just be out there just, everybody just freestyle. Flying from the seat of their pants. But I just, people are very loose with their morals when it comes to that sort of thing, right?
So a lot of kids, when they come out of college, let's say they go out and get a normal job and make $50,000 a year. I remember a stat that it was like somebody was signing a contract. It might have been Terrell Owens was signing a $10 million contract. And somebody said, the math was like, how many years does it take Terrell Owens to make $10 million if he's making $50,000 a year? And you kind of go, oh yeah, yeah. But it's 200 years. You can't do it. You can't do it. So if a kid is offered, if Beck is offered $4 million to go to Miami, good on him.
Yeah.
Now, how do you regulate it? I don't know if there's necessarily a regulation per se, but I wonder if there's a way to fix it, and it would be this. For every NIL dollar that is spent on an athlete, a matching dollar has to be used for a Title IX sport. And I don't mean necessarily going into, and what I mean by that is the smaller sports. I don't mean like if you pay $2.1 million or $4 million to Carson Beck at Miami, you have to give girls volleyball specifically. Right?
I would be for them giving girls volleyball $4 million.
But what I mean is the non-big. What are the big sports? The money generating sports are generally football and basketball, right? Yeah. Men's basketball and men's football. Okay. So if you were to say
women's basketball is getting pretty popular too,
it depends on where it is, though. I mean, you still have plenty of schools that have women's basketball, and you have 200 people in the stands, and it's basically friends and families, and that's about it, right?
Yeah.
Like personally, if it was up to me between sports, we've talked about this. I'm not a fan of women's basketball at all. Yeah. Huge fan of women's volleyball. I will go and watch women's volleyball. I love it.
Let's go women's volleyball. Let's go, baby.
Girls basketball. I'm sorry. I'm just not a fan. And that's on me. But if you were to say, all right, whatever percentage of money that the NIL is giving to combined to the football team has to be matched by the same NIL group. And so maybe what you do is you say, okay, every university has to have an NIL coordinator, whether it's a booster or a liaison from the university. And that liaison is the one who verifies that there's no shenanigans going on, that if, like, what happened to you with UNLV, the quarterback at UNLV, he came out and he said, look, they didn't pay me the NIL they promised. And the NIL came out and said, yes, we did. But after a 3-0 start and nearly in the top 20, he turned around and said, I wanted more.
Yeah.
And then he said, I'm out. I don't want to get hurt. I'm going to go somewhere else, right? So maybe you have somebody an NIL coordinator that is able to do that. And then you say, all right, well, here's all And of course, the problem is you're going to have the same thing that happened before under the table payments.
Yeah, of course.
Unfortunately. But if you said, all right, the total amount of money that the University of Miami is paying in NIL through their boosters or their NIL program is $60 million. 25% of that, there has to be an additional 25% that now goes to non-men's basketball and non-men's football. And that goes into the pool. So now golf, tennis, women's gymnastics, men's gymnastics, field hockey, ping pong, rugby, whatever.
Yep.
They are able to take that funding and use that to supplement and supplement some of those kids.
Yeah.
Maybe that's because, if you had $60 million, and my guess is $60 million next year for the University of Miami, it's probably more than that, right?
That's another thing they have to do to make everything equitable. They have to cap it, man. If not, you're gonna have, which is essentially what you have now, right? You're gonna have the top 20, 50 schools that are just gonna. It's just gonna be a power stand, right? Yeah.
10. You've got it already.
Well, yeah.
You look at the right now. What schools are you going? Let's just go through. What schools have the most money in?
Well, yeah, you got Ohio State, you got Texas, you got Notre Dame. I mean, all the playoff schools are the money schools, right?
Well, minus Boise State, Arizona State,
yeah. Those are the anomalies,
SMU.
Right? Yeah.
But if you go LSU, I'm just going SEC. LSU, Alabama, Georgia, Texas A&M, Texas, Oklahoma. There's 6 from the SEC, right?
Yep.
You go to the Big Ten. Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Oregon, USC, UCLA.
Yep.
Anybody I miss? Let's throw in Notre Dame. Okay, so we're up to 13. Is there anybody I'm missing that is in any? Clemson doesn't do the NIL that Florida State will add. That's 14 teams.
Maybe Miami,
I don't think
depending on how they feel.
I don't think Miami's at that
level.
I don't think they can. Miami's the next step down.
I don't think they can compete with these guys now. They're trying to, but I don't think they have the revenue pool anymore.
So there's 14 teams that probably solid. I don't think we're really missing anybody there.
And I think those are
nobody in the Big 12.
Nope, those are
not at that level.
Yeah, those are going to be a perennial top 14 teams every year.
Here's the funny thing. You could have a situation where, let's say BYU has Ryan Smith, who owns the Utah Jazz, and there's some other billionaires that have come out of BYU for different things. If they got together and they said, hey, guys, we need to compete. So I'm going to commit $50 million to BYU's NIL annually for the next 10 years. And I want each of you to do that. And there's 5 guys that do that. Let's just say there's 5 guys that do that. $250 million. Now remember, you go, well, who's going to put $50 million into that? If you're worth $5 billion, you're making that much in interest pretty easy.
I mean, but then there's creative ways to write it off too. So it's
of course. Sure. Of course. So there's ways to do it, right? So you could have, but what I would like to see is if you have Alabama and Georgia and these, that maybe it's not even a pool that goes to the school. Maybe it's an NIL pool that goes to, I don't want to say the NCAA, but maybe there's a clearinghouse that all of those, that 25% that Miami of their 60 million, now they have to go 15 million. It goes into the NIL, the NIL clearinghouse at BYU's and Utah's and Notre Dame's and Ohio State's and all that stuff. And then from there, there's a national clearinghouse, and they look at it and they go, okay, there's 130 schools, and there's this number of athletes, and this number of team, these are the number of teams that are authorized. We just need to list your roster, and we will get every single player on every single team $750 this year, or whatever the numbers is. I don't know. It's probably pretty significant, but there's ways to do it. And I think that when you have, it's tough when you're talking about money, because at the same time, like if you're Ryan Smith and you're worth $5 to $8 billion and you decide you want to offer the top 10 guys an opportunity to come to BYU. BYU has some unique disadvantages that the other schools don't. So, but let's say you're, I wonder where Bob Johnson, the guy who started BET, went, because I know he's a multi-billionaire. So let's say I don't know, let's say he went to Georgia, right? So Bob Johnson says, hey, I want Georgia for everything we just did. That's not going to happen again. We are not going to get beat by Texas and Ohio State, and we are doing it. So I'm going to commit $100 million every year. Because think about it, $100 million, the guy is worth $5, $8, $9 billion. Yep. He could do that for the next 20 years and still come out way ahead, even without spending another dollar. And so it could happen. It's just interesting, the money that's involved. I'm just glad that the athletes now, I was against athletes getting paid prior, but now that I see what's going on, I would like to see just a little more equity across the line, because I still don't like the idea of Miami being able to spend $60 million and, UNLV only having $15 million. Yeah. But you know what? Get a better program, get better boosters. There's that too.
That's it. All right, man. That is our show. What you got for final thoughts so we can get up out of here?
Final thoughts. Let's see. Who's playing in the championship? Notre Dame and Ohio State?
Notre Dame.
Can they both lose? Can both teams lose? Can I vote for both of them? Because Ohio State fans are about as insufferable as there are. The Ohio State. You know what? You're an Ohio State University. That's what I'll say. There is no the University of California. There's University of California in Los Angeles. There's University of Southern California. There's University of California, Berkeley. There's Ohio State. Not the. Nobody calls it the Notre Dame University, nor should they, nor the Brigham Young University. Get off your high horse. It's Ohio State. We all know who you are. Shut up. That said, I don't know that I can vote. I can root for Notre Dame. Being a BYU fan, it's always nice to see the Catholics lose. So it's tough. So I will say this. I hope the Buffalo Bills win the Super Bowl.
Oh, my goodness. I have no dog in any fight. My Falcons let me down. My Bulldogs let me down. My Braves let me down. It's up to the Hawks, man. That's it.
Oh, the Dodgers got my ring. The Dodgers got me covered.
Yep. All my hopes is on Trae Young and the young boys, man. So that's what we at.
That's rough to have that as a hope.
Man, listen. We'll make it one day. One day. Either way, we'll be back next week, man. Hope you guys enjoyed yourself. We'll see you boys next week. Chappie, have a great week, man. We out of here.
Hey, thanks, CTR.
Yep. Oh, for sure. Thanks, CTR. We'll see you guys next week. We out.
Gee, Ray, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
All right. Yo, let's get into it.
Try to take over the world.
Reaching
Try to take over the world.
and greatest chaplain in the world, Mr.
Try
Lance
to
O'Neill.
take over the world.